Now after that, we have to do the unification of Italy development, how the process began, how it completed. So process of unification. Process of, so we'll be taking a flow chart. Through that we'll be trying to understand the process of unification. So we can start with Italian past, and unique contribution, and then Vienna Congress, then Hudson-Softon nation, Carlsbad, and Act of French Revolutions of 1820, 1820 and 1830, and Act of French Revolution of it, and First National War. Owning of their and labor. Piedmont, Sardinia. On Sardinia. Then Italy, Croning, and then you see Crimean War. Paris Conference. Then Treaty of Tombiers, and then Piedmont, Austria War. And of Franca and G. And unification of Middle Italy. Then of Naples system. Then Battle of Sadova. On complete of Battle of Sudan, 7G. 9. So this is how the process of Italy started and got completed. So first thing is that when we talk about the past of Italy, it said they had a glorious past. And we know that the modern sense of nationalism arose in Europe in which century? 15th century. So from 15th century, different European parts started to become nation. But in case of Italy and Germany, it was too late. Process was very slow also. So they became nation in 1871 finally, Italy and Germany. So when we see the process of the Italian unification, first thing that Italian past was very glorious because it was the center of Roman Empire. Roman Empire, very old empire. And what was the timeline of Roman Empire? Roman civilization, the mature phase developed in 500 BC. 500 BC, and from 500 BC to 400 AD, there was the Western Roman Empire, and then when it started to decline, Eastern Roman Empire with capital Istanbul, means Constantinople, continued. But in 1453, Ottoman Turks captured them. Means that Italy had a golden past as it was the epicenter of Roman Empire. The second thing, it was the birthplace of Renaissance. Renaissance began from Italy. Third thing, you see, Italian geography is very significant. It is very much close to Mediterranean Sea, and that's why it has been always a trading hub. Italy has been always a trading hub. You see, Marco Polo from Venice, Italy came to India, 13th century. So we find that the birthplace of Renaissance, the epicenter of Roman Empire, and then Latin language was the own language of Italy from Latium. The term Latin has been derived from Latium, and so Italian language, which was Latin, became the medieval language of Europe. The medieval Europe language was Latin. That's why you see the sense of oneness is there. And very 14th century AD, there was a Machiavelli, who wrote The Prince, very famous book. And he said that Italy was having the potential to become a nation. That's why Italian you can say philosophers, they were having the belief that Italy is having all the potential to be a nation. And then we find that during the Napoleonic era, Napoleon captured the various parts of Italy. And so we find that Napoleon made the changes in social field, in economic field, political and administrative field. In political administrative field, he unified, he made the unitary laws for all parts of Italy, and then he suppressed the feudal class, which facilitated the emergence of middle class and lower class. He recruited the people of lower class, middle class to the royal office, and then in economy he promoted trade and commerce, and then unitary standards of weight and measurements were used by him. So all these brought the oneness, sense of oneness, economic oneness was strengthened. But after you can say Napoleonic downfall, we find that there is a Vienna Congress, and when Vienna Congress came, Vienna Congress basically redivided Italy again, and that's why in Piedmont, Sardinia, there were Savoy dynasty, was a indigenous dynasty. And here in Naples and Sicily, there is a branch of Bourbons. Branch of Bourbon dynasty was ruling. Here in Rome and Papal State, Pope was there. Here in Parma, Modena, Tuscany, there were branch of Habsburg dynasty of Austria, and you see Lombardy, and in Venetia, Lombardy and Venetia, there was direct control of Austria. So Italy was divided into so many parts, and it was done by Vienna Congress deliberately. Why? Because Italy would not be a nation. If Italy would be a nation, it would be problem to Russia. It would be problem for Austria as well. It was divided by Vienna Congress, but despite of this, they could not stop the process. They could not erase the test which were already tested by Italian people when Napoleon ruled Italy. And so we find that after that the revolution happened. When a revolution happened, when a revolution of 1820 and 30 happened, people would be influenced in Piedmont, Sardinia, in Milan. Revolts would be taking place. Why? To have a constitutional government, to give some important you can say liberty to people. And there was another important development there, that is the Bursen-Soften, role of Bursen-Soften. So Bursen-Soften was union of students at universities. So they tried to strengthen the sense of nationalism, oneness. But when they started their movement, it was suppressed or repressed by Metternich under Carlsbad decree. He came with the suppressive measure, the Carlsbad decree, and people were present, students were present, and that's why they wanted to suppress the spread of nationalism. So this is how the things started in Italy, and after that we find that there was a revolution of France in 1848, and a revolution of France of 1848 is known as People's Spring. It has spread everywhere, so definitely it would be influencing Italian part also. And when this happened in Italy, the you can say liberals and the nationalists came together in favor of Piedmont, and they tried to go against Austria, and that is known as the First National War. First National War. But this First National War was lost by Piedmont, Sardinia on one side. On the other side, Mazzini tried to establish a republic in Rome by replacing Pope. But this government could not survive for a long time. Again, with the help of French troops, the government was re-established over there of Pope, and that's why the experiment of republic could not get success over there on one side. On the other side, Piedmont, Sardinia defeated, and so finally after Charles Albert was the king of Piedmont, Sardinia. When he died, after him his son Victor Emmanuel II came power in 1850, and he appointed Caber as his chancellor. Now Victor and chancellor both were advocates of constitutional monarchy. They wanted to unify Italy under the constitutional monarchy, and then they started to work for that. Caber was given free hand by Victor, and so he tried to did so many reforms in various parts of Italy and various segments, spheres of Italy. So he did the economic reforms, he tried to do the military reforms, and when he was strengthening Piedmont, Sardinia, basically Piedmont, Sardinia is home state, at that point of time the international episode happened, that is known as Crimean War. When we talk about the Crimean War was basically the result of the conflict of vested interest. This is the Balkan Peninsula, this is the Mediterranean. So on one side we find that Russia was there, other side Austria was there. So Austria and Russia were eyeing Balkan Peninsula, because Balkan Peninsula was the part of Ottoman Turkish Empire. Though after 1820 onwards, the different territories of Balkan Peninsula started to go for the independence, but still Bosnia, Herzegovina and Macedonian territories were under the control of Ottoman Turkish Empire, and that's why Russia wanted to influence this territory, because as they would be under the influence of Russia, Russia will have the access to Mediterranean Sea also. On the other side, Austria was also interested to have Bosnia and Herzegovina annexed to his empire, her empire, and that's why in that sense the problem was very much there. And on the other side, Britain wanted to maintain a status quo in Balkan Peninsula, because Britain had the access to Mediterranean Sea, as Gibraltar was under the control of. So on one side, Russia was having interest in Balkan, Britain wanted to maintain the status quo, and France was always having the habit of interference. On one side this happened. On the other side, we find that the issue of key of church was there, key of church, and in this case we find that the followers of Greek Orthodox Church were there on one side, on the other side the followers of Roman Catholic Church were there. And so when this happened, Russia supported Greek Orthodox Church followers, and Britain and France, they supported the followers of Roman Catholic Church. So in that case, and as these things were happening inside the Turkish Empire, this brought the War of Crimea. War of Crimea. So in this War of Crimea, on one side Britain was there, on the other side Russia was there. Side Britain, France was there, Turkey was there, Austria was absent in this war, Prussia was absent in this war, and from Britain and France side, without invitation, Piedmont Sardinia army made entry. Now in the beginning, Russia was also putting a very strong challenge, but later on Russia was defeated, and when Russia defeated, Piedmont Sardinia army also enjoyed the victory, and when this victory was being celebrated, it means that the people of Italy will find some sense of pride in Piedmont Sardinia victory, and that's why they would be allying, they would be now ready to go with Piedmont Sardinia. So this one thing happened. On the other side, due to the Crimean War involvement, Khyber or Piedmont Sardinia had the opportunity to participate in Paris Peace Conference, where Khyber raised the issue of Italy, that people of Italy wanted to have a nation, but Austria is making intervention. And so in that case, the sympathy of people of Europe favored one Italy, because if Italy would be a nation, hardly there will be problem for any nation except of Austria. So that's why they supported their concern. And so in that case, one thing that sympathy was obtained. The second thing, that Britain and France became the friend of Piedmont Sardinia. Now Britain proved a neutral friend and France proved active friend. So when this happened, after this can say this Battle of Crimea, now Khyber signed Treaty of Plombiers with Napoleon III, the King of France. Now the question is that why Napoleon III agreed sign the Treaty of Plombiers, why he became ready to help Piedmont Sardinia in unification of Italy. So first thing is popularity was declining. Napoleon's popularity was declining. So it was thought by him that if Nice and Savoy, if some territory, Nice plus Savoy, would be obtained by Napoleon III, which is, these territories are very close to France, so his popularity would be strengthened, because at that time, even today, you see territorial gain is very important. Territorial gains very important for a nation. So that's why, due to this territorial gains expectation, Napoleon became ready to help Piedmont Sardinia. First thing, popularity was on decline. The second thing is that Napoleon III in his youth had been the member of Carbonari work in Italy, because Italy had been the part of Napoleon Bonaparte Empire. Getting the point? So when it was redivided, Carbonari started go for nationalism. He was a member of Carbonari in his youth. Carbonari, secret societies. There was some emotional attachment also with Italy, the case of Napoleon. And the third thing, that Caber convinced him, persuaded him that you have to play the role of liberator, because you are from Napoleon III family, and Napoleon III was the liberator of Europe. Napoleon III was the person who fulfilled the aspiration of people of Europe, because his army was known as the army of liberation, army of revolution, and that's why he convinced. So persuasion also happened. Persuasion. So Napoleon III agreed, but Napoleon III said that don't try to be the offender. Means you can provoke Austria, but let Austria attack first, and then I would be joining you. Getting the point? And so when militarization started by Caber, it was a provocation to Austria, and so Austria attacked. Now when Austria did the beginning, Piedmont, Sardinia plus French army entered to Lombardy, captured Lombardy and ousted the soldiers of Austria. But when Venetia was yet to be captured, Napoleon III changed his decision and withdrew his army from the battlefield. Now again the question is, why he changed the decision, why he withdrew army in the middle? So the causes were for that were, first thing, Russia came with the warning that if France would be helping Piedmont Sardinia, Prussia would be coming from the side of Austria. Because suppose if Austria would be captured, something happens like that, it would be problem for Prussia also. France was expansionist nation. There was a history of France. First thing, balance of power would be also changed. First thing. The second thing, that the people, especially the Catholic people of France were against any help. They were against any help from the beginning, because they knew that if Pope would be dethroned and Rome would be unified, Pope would be losing the privileges. So that's why they were, especially the Catholics of France, were not in the favor of unification of Italy. And then third thing is that Lombardy they have conquered, but at Venetia the army of Austria was very strong, and there was a monetary loss, there was a loss of soldiers also. So going with all these conditions, Napoleon III signed the Treaty of Villafranca with Austria, and withdraw army of France from the battlefield in the middle. Now when it happened, Caber said that they have stopped me in making Italy from north, I will be doing it from south with revolution. They have stopped me in making Italy with their diplomacy. Because why? Because France and Austria had come together and they have stopped the process, and that's why he said that he was very angry, and he said that I will be making Italy from south through revolution. And from there onwards, the sense of nationalism was strengthened by Caber in various parts of Italy, in southern Italy, central Italy. So this happened. After that, Treaty of Zurich was signed between Piedmont Sardinia plus France and plus Austria, and the things were settled down. Venetia was retained with Venetia was retained with Austria. Lombardy was given to Piedmont, Sardinia. So this happened, and then that then we find that Treaty of Bellefranca and Zurich in 59 means Lombardy was obtained by Piedmont, Sardinia. Now these victories and the liberal attitude of Piedmont, Sardinia and these developments facilitated and strengthened the sense of nationalism. They also strengthen the sense of belief that we can become a nation, and that's why people of Middle Italy, means Parma, Tuscany, Modena, they were under the control of branch of Habsburg dynasty of Austria. So they revolted. The revolts were facilitated, strengthened indirectly by Cabot. They revolted, and then the rulers were ousted, and then the plebiscite happened, and under the plebiscite they said that we want to be the part of Piedmont, Sardinia. So this thing happened on one side. On the other side, to keep mum, France was given Nice and Savoy. So Nice and Savoy territories were given to Napoleon III France, so that France would not be obstructing the ongoing process of unification of Italy. Getting the point? So therefore, France indirectly facilitated the unification. Napoleon III got Nice and Savoy from Piedmont, Sardinia, and Middle Italy was unified using plebiscite. Plebiscite means peoples themselves voted that we want to be the voluntarily, we want to be the part of Piedmont, Sardinia. It means that in the unification process, nationalism, popular nationalism, magazines, newspaper, journals, plebiscite, all were used, which show that Italian unification was done through middle class way and constitutional way. Middle class way and constitutional. And then after these developments, peoples of Naples and Sicily, the people of Naples and Sicily, now they invited Garibaldi to come forward and lead their movement. So Garibaldi came with 1,000 volunteers known as red shirts, and here there is a island, British island, from where they made the entry to Sicily. They ousted the rulers and helped by people, and then they entered Naples. From Naples, the ruler was also ousted, and people supported him. And then he wanted to march to Rome, but his march was stopped by Victor Emmanuel II. He himself came with the troops and stopped his march to Rome, because if at that point of time Rome would be attacked by Garibaldi army, probably France would be making the intervention. Getting the point? Because in Rome there was a French troops. So this happened, and Garibaldi surrendered these two territories to Victor Emmanuel II, because Victor Emmanuel II was his king also. There was a loyalty also, loyalty to nation, and there is a respect for the king also, and that's why Naples and Sicily also joined Piedmont, Sardinia or Italy with a plebiscite, and finally in 1860 Italian parliament came into being. So two territories are left now, Venetia and Rome, and the other territories and some papal states. Other territories now are the part of Italy. So unification completed, almost completed in 1860. Parliament came into being, constitutional monarchy was established, and the king of Piedmont became the king of New Italy. This is how the Italian unification happened. Unfortunately, in 1861, Faber died, so the rest task of unification was to be done by Victor Emmanuel II. So, what is the rest? The rest is Rome and Venetia. Rome and Venetia. Parallel to the unification of Italy, there was ongoing process in Germany, and it was led by Prussia under the headship of Bismarck. Bismarck was the Prime Minister of Prussia, so he was also leading the process of unification of Germany, and in that process of unification of Germany, again two deadly opponents were there. On one side Austria was there, that side France was there. So now Austrian challenge was to be sorted out, and it was sorted out by Battle of Sadova. Battle of Sadova, 1866. The Battle of Sadova, with modern technology and great tactics, Prussia defeated Austria, and then the Treaty of Prague was signed. At the Treaty of Prague, Austria promised that now, from now onward, is not going to intervene in the unification process of Germany and Italy. First thing. Second thing, that Venetia was given to Italy. So this is how Venetia became the part of Italy in 1866 through Treaty of Prague after the Battle of Sadova. Now, when Austria was defeated, it was a great surprisement for France, because actually Austria was defeated, but it was the defeat of France, because the next turn would be of France, and so France opposed the process of unification of Germany, and in that case the two new development happened. The first thing, that is known as succession issue. Succession issue of Spain. This intensified the situation. This further strengthened the tension between France and Prussia. One succession issue of Spain. So you see that this is Germany, and if this is France and Spain. In Spain, the new king was to be installed, new king, and one claimant was Leopold. Leopold was one claimant to the throne of Spain, one claimant. This Leopold was distant relative of Kaiser William I, king of Prussia. And Napoleon III thought that if Spain would be under the control of Leopold, who is a distant relative of Prussian king, so Prussia and Leopold can come together, and so in that case the position of France would be weakened, and that's why he said that Leopold should not be claiming for the throne, and that's why under the threat of his warning, Leopold withdrew her claim, and that's why in that case Napoleon further wanted to have a written assurance from Kaiser William I that you write that in future also you would not be going to support the claim of Leopold. But this was not acceptable to any king, and so he rejected. So this succession issue of Spain strained the relation of Prussia and France, and along with this there happened another issue that is known as Benedetti telegram issue. Second issue was Benedetti telegram, that worsened the situation and finally facilitated the outbreak of Franco-Prussian War. Benedetti telegram episode. This became the immediate cause for Franco-Prussian War. And we have in previous classes we have already discussed that when Battle of Sadova was lost by Austria and then it was followed by Treaty of Prague, Northern German Confederation was made, means Prussia plus some other neighboring German states, South 22 around, the Northern German Federation had already made. So the remaining part means Southern German states were there. Napoleon III thought that as Bismarck's attitude and Prussia's attitude is not liked by the southern German state. So in case of war, the southern German state will be allying with France, not with Prussia. He was under the misconception, and this happened. And when this episode happened, known as Benedetti telegram issue, what was that? So at a point of time, Kaiser William I was on holidays. He was holidaying somewhere out of the, you can say, kingdom. When he was holidaying, the ambassador Benedetti was the ambassador, diplomat of France. He met Kaiser William and came with some new terms, new demands. France was as in dominant position, so that's why France would be always demanding something, bargaining. Sometimes niece seva from Italy, and from Prussia they wanted to get Belgium. So Belgium was at that time under the protection of Prussia. So later Belgium be the part of France, and if these southern states are independent, let us divide the southern states. Some would be the part of Prussia, some would be the part of France. Got the point? So this kind of demands, bargaining would be continuously made by Napoleon III, and that's why he came with the new demands. And when he came with the new demands, this new demands and the new development would be informed by Kaiser William I to Mark through a telegram. Now when this telegram would be received by Bismarck, he doctored the wordings. And provoked the sentiments people of France. In France, basically, he tried to doctor the wordings and he tried to incite the, you can say, opinion that Benedetti has been insulted by Kaiser William I. So in that case, there would be provocation on the part of French people. So in the beginning, Bismarck was not in the favor of war because he wanted to take some time, but finally saw that war has to be there first thing. And in the case war happens, now southern German people should also ally with Germany. So he also showed them some letters written by Napoleon III to Prussian king, and these letters showed that at various points of time Napoleon III has written that the southern states should be distributed between Prussia and France. It means that the southern state now realize that Prussia is not the enemy, the actual enemy is France, and that's why they helped northern German states, and at the time of war they came together. So this Benedetti episode made the provocation, incited the, you can say, the sense of anti nationalism, like the people of France hated Germany, the German people started to hate France, and that's why in that case the Prusso or Franco-Prussian war. Prussian actually it's a German war because northern Germany has been united already. Southern Germany army would be also allied with them. So the Franco-Prussian war 1870, Napoleon III position started to be vacant, and when his position started to be vacant, he would be withdrawing the troops from Rome. And when the Roman troops of France from Rome would be withdrawn, now Victor Emmanuel II would be incorporating Rome to Italy, as they had the correspondence with Bismarck. And on the other side, in the Battle of Sedan, decisive battle during this war, 1870, now France would be losing the game. France was defeated by Germany, and this brought the concurrent of Germany. Now, after this, at Versailles Mirror Palace, coronation happened. Coronation of Kaiser William I happened. He became the Emperor of Unified Germany. So it was a great humiliation on the part of France. France was humiliated by Germany on the part of Germany. France was humiliated, first thing. And the second thing, under the Treaty of Frankfurt, after the Battle of Sedan, there was a Treaty of Frankfurt. Alsace-Lorraine was taken from France by Germany. Treaty of Frankfurt. And Rome was accepted as the territory of Italy by France. Got the point? Now, when this was happening, Russia got opportunity to militarize Sebastopol in Black Sea. There is a small island, Sebastopol, that was militarized by Russia. That was by actually this issue was very famous, because this issue was also a very famous issue at the time of Crimean War. Why Crimean War happened? Because Russia wanted to establish her control in Black Sea, because if in Black Sea Russia would be having the influence through Black Sea, it can come to Mediterranean. And Sebastopol in Black Sea, Sebastopol, say if this is the Black Sea, Sebastopol is a small island. If it would be militarized, means military base would be there, naval base would be there. That's very important. So this is how the Frankfurt it happened. Compensation was imposed on, you can say, France